Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to Recovery Live. My name is Tom. I'm a recovered alcoholic. Welcome to Came to Believe Recovery's weekly live stream where we discuss everything recovery, solution oriented, where we live in the go. I want to welcome my co host, Alicea, to the show. Hi, Alicea.
Hi, everybody.
So, guys, it's a two braid day, as you can see, and it is with Kasara too.
And we didn't plan that. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just was a 2 braid day.
We got a good show today, Alicea. We got our friends from across the pond on with us.
Dee and Terry.
Yeah. But we're going to stay on a while so that they know that they're not taking over. Just make sure that the audience knows that really we're in charge until they have the takeover, which is coming, I think. There's a day when you and I both can't be on, I think, coming up here in the future. I don't know when that is.
I think when we're in Missouri.
Oh, right. Yeah.
June.
July, that is.
July.
Right.
Okay.
So we got some great things coming up. The next thing for us, Alicea, is the St. Anthony's retreat in the Bronx. We're heading out there today, actually, pretty much right after Recovery Live. We're going to run out and see the guys and talk to Father Ignatius and just make another connection. Before long, I'm going to go up to the 5th floor and check out our rooms.
Right. Is he reaching out to other places too to maybe bring other people in? Women maybe, or just men? Do we know?
He is. And for everybody that's listening, the last time we went there, it was very strictly just the residents at the shelter. But after this, when I was there last week, he said he was going to invite outsiders. So yes, family members of the people that were in and anyone that anybody knew, coworkers, and he was going to call around a couple other places that he knew to invite. Yes, women too.
Okay.
So we should have women and men and probably another 10 to 15 people, I would think. So we'll be at 40 or 50 or 60. So it's really exciting. And the other thing, guys, that we think we're going to do, I'm working on it, is that the team is also going to volunteer for City Relief on the Thursday before we do the retreat, because they're going to be in South Bronx reaching out to homeless with the van, feeding homeless and providing services for those that are in need and have been disadvantaged by the lack of shelter. And the team's going to go out and help with that. So it's going to be a really great time in the South Bronx. The only thing we're not going to do is see the Yankees while we're in the South Bronx.
But you did tell them that you were going to take them to a game. Is that going to still happen at some point?
It is.
Father Ignatius, yeah.
Yeah, and I was going to take all the guys to the game on last Wednesday when we came back from Nevada City. But with that hip shot, I had a shot in my hip and stuff. I couldn't get out there that Wednesday. But I promised Father Ignatius one game this summer for sure. Him and I could park right at the shelter and we'll walk over.
That'll be cool.
Yeah. I have to go with my sister too. We'll get to the Yankees. I'm a little surprised we haven't gone yet, but the weather has been great just lately, but usually beginning of the season, it can be cold at Yankee Stadium. So wait for it to warm up a little bit. So that's what's coming up, right? Is that, and then we're going to Missouri to talk to some leaders out there and get them whipped up to see how we can bring our program into that St. Joseph / Kansas City area. And then we're going to have that first commuter retreat in Manhattan in Kips Bay at the end of August.
And so we've Greece got is for you.
Oh yeah, I'm going Thursday. Yeah. Which will be another great thing because it's just something new. We're going to go train the staff of an anti-sex trafficking shelter where they are rehabbing women that have come out of sex trafficking and just human trafficking. Some of it is just slavery that goes on in this world. And they got wind of how we do the program quickly, and they think it'll be a great benefit to them there, because some of them don't stay for the whole year program, and at least if they got this part of it, maybe it could make a big difference in their life moving forward. So we're going with a team from Florida who's going to be from Orangewood Church and from the Glenda Morgan Foundation, along with Rick Tsoukalis. So it's not a lot of fun, guys. It's all work while we're there, but I think we will.
You'll have a little bit of fun.
Yeah, we'll
It'll
see
be pretty, I think.
things, but mostly we'll be working Monday through Thursday, and then I'm heading back. So those are updates that are going on. There's some things in the work behind the scenes, but we'll wait to have some things to wait to announce later, right?
Secret. Shh. I don't even know what you're talking about, but
you actually do. But
oh, I do? Okay.
Alicea, if you tell her something yesterday, you have to tell her to her today.
Yeah,
again.
I'll forget.
And if I tell her now, we'll have to tell her later. So
it's okay.
Yeah, it's what it is. So today, Alicea, we're going to be talking about the 4 dimensions of recovery, which we are health, purpose, home, and community, and how that relates to someone's recovery, and how that those 4 dimensions are overlaid in all different types of recovery programs along with ours. How SAMHSA, which is the organization that's behind addiction recovery really and rights policy and stuff in the government level here in the United States, they consider these the 4 dimensions, things that are measured when someone is in recovery. So it's in the rehab centers, it's in the, all around, which is a measure of how recovery is. And I would agree with it, that we say the same things. We push at these 4 things as far as living in the go. And live in the promises. What is getting better in your life? What's happening, right? How's it working for you today? And what are you using your 6 hours a day for to improve? Like Steve Foreman says.
Exactly.
I went back to school and you were on when Cass was talking. I got a 4.0 in my undergrad and then a 3.95 in my grad. And it was very stressful. And Cass is graduating this weekend. Golf clap. Cass is graduating with a master's degree, guys. Very smart. But she got a 3.95 too, so she's frustrated. Why couldn't they just round up, we both say. But,
well, they have to be fair.
I guess we have, yeah. And how ridiculous are we that, it's still an A. We want a better A, right? I don't know. And nobody ever looks at GPA for graduate anyway. They look at it maybe for undergraduate. But anyway, these are things. She's living in the go. She's moving her life. She's got a purpose. She's moving it towards home. She's living in community, and she's very healthy. She runs.
But she's
and takes the dog out. She's a normie, but still.
It still works for everybody.
Works for everybody. These are 4 dimensions of life, a success maybe. But anyway, I'd love to bring our 2 guests on. They are both in the UK. A return regular guest that we have on our show from Manchester, England. Please welcome Dee.
Hello, everyone.
And where is Terry? Terry is where? Is he in Manchester to Liverpool?
No, Terry's in south of London.
Boy, I didn't even know where you were, Terry. All right, and welcome from the south of London, Terry Wade. Hi, Terry.
Yeah, hi. All right, guys, how are you doing? Nice to see you all.
Actually, you look as if you're actually coming in from work.
I am.
Yeah, so the subject we're talking about, Terry is in the place where he does that work. So the dimensions of recovery. I was just going to say, for the people that are from the UK that are listening, we might talk with slightly different language in relation to how things are measured. I don't know whether you could do that, Terry, on those 4 areas of recovery, if that's what would be used in drug services. They didn't used to be when I used to manage drug services in the early 2000s. We probably, although we would have followed those 4 things, that would not have been necessarily the structure of the way things were measured. So I don't know whether that's the case now, Terry. I don't know how.
So Tom was just talking about the 4 dimensions from America: health, purpose, home, community. So in England, we've just started a 10-year government review, so it's called Harm to Hope. So it's really getting extra funding. So it's really to look at all those areas. So they're trying to link up all areas really, from substance misuse, homelessness, health, mental health, all those areas. So yeah, our service, or just across the UK, is a walk-in service for anyone. You know, they can walk in off the streets. They can have referrals from doctors, GPs, mental health, social services. Anyone can access a service, any range of services. But from the recovery side, it's to work on those 4 principles really for long-standing recovery. So it's very, very similar. Yeah, principles.
And it makes sense it's the 4 things I think that we all wanted as a recovered alcoholic addict myself. I'll often say at retreats, what I really wanted was to be successful at something in life, and my addiction and my spiritual malady and everything that I was deep into didn't have my health very good. I didn't have a purpose. Home life was rocky. And the community I was in wasn't very healthy. I didn't have a community that was really supportive of me, except, buying me shots at the bar. That was the community I was in, right? So these would be great tools. And I think they line up great with the promises in the 9th step and the 10th step and the rest of them in the legacy guide and the big book, as far as measures of that. It really points to, when you get recovered, these 4 dimensions should be improving. At some, you will see improvement in these 4 areas.
As individuals for life, people in substance misuse, if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's an upside down triangle. So, if someone's not fulfilling their basic needs of food, water, shelter, then there's their emotional needs, which we would talk about, later on, emotional sobriety. Then they don't, the need for relationships, they suffer. If someone is active addiction, then they're not great. And then it will go on to work and also self-actualization, what they're going to do for the future. So someone that has the foundation, a building block of life really, would be all right. With someone with substance misuse, the triangle gets flipped upside down. So they're not even making their basic needs. So I think the 4 principles are very similar with when someone comes into recovery. It's like, what is it you need right now? Someone is, smoking heroin, and they want to come off heroin, they need to, a substitute prescribing first of all. So if someone's alcohol dependent, obviously they need a detox. So it's working with the individual where they're at physically first. If they're dependent on a substance, there's different substances. I know I was reading earlier about you've got Trank in the UK, not in the UK, in the USA, in Philadelphia, which is, I've been reading about. It's really, been mixing with fentanyl. It's really dangerous. It's a drug that's not in England at the moment, but it affects all society, doesn't it? But the personal responsibility starts with the individual, however they start their recovery journey. Coming to a service, maybe they need physical help to be separated from the substance if it's physically addicting. And then what we talk about is dealing with the thinking that precedes the drink, the drug, the behavior, which we know the steps work really well to do that. In our service, we call it psychosocial intervention. So it's about working with the ways of thinking. And then once they've achieved that defense, they've got some clean time behind them. They're sober in the sense of they're not physically addicted. It's then, how do they maintain that? And it goes with those principles that you're talking about, building recovery capital in the sense of physically, what do they need? Do they need, exercising, health, food, water, get the basic needs? And then once they can do that, then, the need for relationships, substance misuse is separates people. So then it's about getting into community. So again, we know that by coming to fellowship, engaging in groups, they can start forming self-esteem, and then they can start building on that stuff, and that fits in with what we say, living in the go. But everyone comes in at different levels of addiction, physically dependent and for years of abuse or whatever it is. So once they've physically been separated, we can help them with that. They work on their mental and their emotional health, and then just build a new life, which we would call living in the go, and very, much fits the pattern of what we talk about in Came to Believe. Once we've, someone's stable, not physically dependent, it's then like, what are you going to do? Build this new life, and that's what we see. We see people come into retreat sometimes dependent as well, and go through the process of the steps and start building that new life, and then 3, 4, 5, 6 months, or even a year later in a completely different place. So it's an amazing thing to watch.
And I think it's certainly an amazing thing to watch. And it's something I think some of us, as we get into this, we don't even understand these 4 dimensions and how they could be, grown in our own lives, like purpose. I mean, I didn't know what my purpose was, and figuring that out was something that the steps and working my 10, 11, and 12 helped me to do as I was growing and commencing this way of living and growing in understanding and effectiveness. Part of it was, what's not working in your life, Tom? You don't have any money, you owe a lot of money, and your work isn't very well. You're not making much money. Well, what are you going to do about it? Right. And those were those things that helped me try to set up a plan, doing short-term goals and long-term goals in order to find my purpose. And then in the meantime, trying to get home straightened out, which all I needed to do is come home every night and be stable. A lot of us, that's all anybody that of our family wanted, was us to just do what we said and come home every night and be a responsible kind of partner at home. And then health, we were talking before, Alicea, of like, health is emotional, mental, and physical and spiritual. So even health has 4 dimensions to it, which I think really get touched. At least the emotional, mental, and spiritual take a real pivot after the steps. At least you get a clear head. You say, wait a minute, if that thinking that precedes the drink goes away, that's a real mental change for us. We've connected to a higher power. And then just taking the substance away generally makes most of us healthier. I know I just felt better, right? By just not taking the substance anymore, begin to eat right and sleep right. So these are certainly 4 dimensions that should be monitored. And like we say in the promises, you should expect improvement on them and develop some plan towards doing it as you're working your 10, 11, and 12.
It's interesting in the step 10 promises where it says we cease fighting anything, anyone, or anybody. So, when someone comes into a early recovery, obviously the physical dependence, if it is physical dependence, that's the cease fighting, the alcohol at the end, even alcohol at the end. But, there may be problems with finances, like it says, there's lots of areas of self that get affected, you know what I mean? So if someone can't manage their finances, they haven't got housing, it's going to affect them physically, mentally, because they're outside. So, it's like, what does the person need right here, right now when they come to the services? What's your most important need? Sometimes people, it's not substance misuse. It's like, I need a house, I need a home, I need whatever it is, I need food. So it's about, what is the most pressing problem the individual has. But obviously we know people with substance misuse will sadly not think about those areas. They will just go and get the substance. That comes the most important thing, and that's where we meet people at. That's what we do in Came to Believe. We meet people at where they're at, whatever level of addiction they're at, and addiction doesn't discriminate. We see that, it could be someone who's really, high functioning, but physically becomes addicted to a substance and can't stop. And then, what is the underlying symptoms that we talk about through, 2 through 7, looking at those things that drive the person, the defects that they think may serve them. And once they can look at that stuff, what we call the resentments and things that keep them trapped in the past, a lot of clients, we would class that as trauma. Do you know what I mean? It's not so much the traumatic things that happen, it's the trauma that's left, that's undealt with, which is the emotional sobriety, which again, we know through 4 through 7, and then 8 and 9 will help deal with that. But, sometimes people need the outside help as well.
What area? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, listening to that, I haven't been involved with working in drug services directly, really, for the last sort of 10, 12, 13 years. Hi, Jamie. Just see Jamie. I used to manage drug services, and one of the biggest things was as if there was some perhaps a little bit of a, where there'd be criticism from fellowships, where people often that go to Came to Believe might have been in fellowships, and then people that were in drug services, drug and alcohol services. There would be like a little bit of a sort of, you should go with us, not with them, and I think there's a real role for it all. And I think some of the time, from what I saw, was that, there is one end, which is like harm reduction, just, giving people needles so that they don't kill themselves, like clean needles so they don't get BBVs, blood diseases, etc., all the way through to like the most spiritual aspects of recovery, something like Came to Believe. But along that, it's almost like an arch, and we should be, that coming to meet people where they are is so important. No one, that comes to Came to Believe should be expecting that Came to Believe is going to provide a home for them.
Right.
Came to Believe is not going to be able to. It will be able to help with purpose, and it will be able to help with recovery. But there's a lot of physical needs that are needed, and advice in how to live. So some of that comes through the step 10 process. You learn through step 10 about how to live. But once you get into step 10, I think a lot of the psychosocial interventions are very useful. And the other thing, so I think, this sort of going into maybe some fellowship meetings and getting, the drug services don't understand about the 12 steps, and maybe going into going into the other way, and it's like, well, they don't understand about, we're professionals, they're not professionals, these people that have got experience of, what are called peers or lived experience. Oh, well, they're not professionals, so we're the professionals, and I think it would be great if both groups and both areas would work together and see what works together well. Terry is a great example of it working together. I think, those having the 12 steps, working within drug services, within psychosocial interventions, cognitive behavioral therapy, motivational interviewing, brief solution focused type activities, which is what we were very involved with all those years ago, that we would be doing all that work, and complementary therapies, like acupuncture, stuff like that, all that sort of stuff. So, and the last thing really, I think, is that there is a misunderstanding to say, that people in drug services or alcohol services don't understand addiction. And maybe that's true, but there's also people that are maybe physically dependent, and maybe they've got a problem in their life and had a trauma. And although the 12 steps will work for everyone, it's not. And then there's, that they might not need that. They would be very much helped in a drug service. And then there's others that just cannot stop drinking, drugging, or doing whatever, which might need the 12 steps because there's just no other solution, because they're absolutely powerless. And I just think if people will come together and have these discussions and say, look, we can work together on this, it would help everybody, because we're not a be all and end all. So anyway,
can I just say that's actually happening now, well, in England it is. So this new initiative, Harm to Hope, is happening. So every drug service invites all the fellowships in, and it's classed as mutual aid now. So you'll have every fellowship. There's AA, NA, CA, SLA in most drug services. It's mutual aid, and most drug workers will, and Smart Recovery and Lifeline. We everything's on offer. And what I find is the people that engage. If someone, there's two ways to look at it, because if someone comes in, it's about, that personal recovery, that first part we're talking about, responsibility. Do you mean if someone comes in and take responsibility for their life, they're going to change the cycle of change, pre-contemplation, contemplation, action. We call that working the steps. It's the same similar process. When someone's motivated to change, they will change, and it's like, let's help them. So people that work on a pathway, if someone's alcohol dependent, obviously they need a detox. What happens a lot from the fellowship side as well. Sometimes not saying came to believe, because we embrace all mind-altering substances, which is really good. So some fellowships can be very drug specific, but someone may go to an AA meeting who's alcohol dependent, and they'll be saying, "Oh, it's abstinence, don't drink," and they go in fits and they withdraw. So it's about education on both sides. Do you know what I mean? Being aware and giving people the right advice, But the great thing about, again, came to believe is it's very much all mind-altering substances, so it's not drug specific. So the program that we offer will fit pretty much any addiction and behaviour. So that's the fantastic thing about Came to Believe. You know what I mean? That it's not, you got to go to this one, you got to go to that one. It's come and have an experience at Came to Believe meeting or a retreat, and then continue afterwards. And like you say, build on those, what we call, Tom's living in the go. It's fantastic. I mean, it's about living. Sadly, people trapped in addiction don't know how to live, and that's why they turn to substances.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's just good news to hear that. I thought that might be the case, because, as I say, it's 13 years since I worked in the field, and I think that there was especially like a breakdown from about 2000. I don't know, from about 2002 through to about 2007. There was like a pull away from understanding that some people were, needed harm reduction services, completely harm reduction, just to help them to be treated as human beings and to be able to care for them. And I think it's moving back again, but I think it's been a bit slow in moving back to care for everyone. But even at that time, even when there was a lot of care for harm reduction, I don't think we had that sort of understanding of the 12-step program being embraced in drug services. I just hope the fellowships start to embrace what drug services do and what alcohol services do. Is also sitting in meetings and saying, no, don't just call that service, oh, they're no good. Find out what they do and take what they do offer, and understand they do help some people. Maybe not you, but there'll be some people that can be helped. Anyway, I don't know. So as I say, that's just great news, Terry, to hear that.
Yeah. And that is funny enough, we've been doing that as well. So it's bridging the link the other way around. So we've been taking posters and leaflets the other way, like where we're being prisons or church halls and things like that. I've done the same thing, and also in certain conventions just to have a presence. So where it be, there may be an event where all the drug services, social services may all attend one event, and then the fellowships may attend. Now it's the other way around. We're sort of attending some conventions as well, and there's roles, again, for Came to Believe to do that as well. Whether it's in America or in England. I mean, this is what we can offer as a support, to work with as it goes. As it's not against, or it's alongside. Do you mean? So yeah, there's massive opportunities for joint partnership working. 100%. Yeah.
So Tom,
yeah.
Did you ever go into drug or alcohol service in your time, or into a rehab?
I never used a rehab. I did my entire recovery was through the steps to an AA. So I didn't do a rehab. I didn't do a detox. I haven't contacted any of the government bureaucracy in order to get recovery. I didn't. Did you, Alicea?
No.
That's quite interesting, because I got put into what's called the Priory here. And when I say got put, I actually got in touch with them, and I went into the Priory. Now, they had started, this is in the early 2000s, so 22 years ago, they had started to engage with the 12-step program, but it wasn't the actual founders' 12-step program. It was, what they did was, it was more of a psychosocial, and we sort of talked about psychology. It was very much psychology, and a lot of people didn't recover, but they would, feel better while they were there, and they would have a detox, and they would have things like art therapy. This is in the early 2000s, confidence building, rational thinking, all these sort of sessions. And for me, it didn't do anything, because I couldn't stop. As soon as I walked out the door, I picked up a drink. So I was one of those that needed the 12 steps immediately. But then there were people who did very well there. not everyone doesn't do well. That's the thing that we have to understand, that we haven't, we're not, I think the big book says we've got no monopoly on God, so I think that's the thing. But, so I went through that process, but it just didn't work for me. That was all. What did you do, Terry? Did you go through drug services, or what did you?
I've been all over. So yeah, walk-in drug agencies, rehabs. But so again, all that did is physically separate me from the substance. You know what I mean? So when I left, because I never changed the way I thought or felt, at 90 days I'm using, you know what I mean? So it's not until I embarked on the steps and found the power, that my mind became a recovered state. Do you know what that was? So yeah. So it's not that rehabs don't work. Sometimes people need to be separated from the substance and the surroundings and the people, maybe that they're at, and the areas. So, but that's what rehabs offer. But ultimately it's about doing this in the community, which, I ended up doing in the community, through the 12 steps, and then ultimately through Clean Tip Leave, and embarking on the journey there and going deeper. So I've experience of both.
We often say when I'm going out to people, and I say the same thing, Dee. I mean, some people do very well in a rehab. It's what they need. They need that, and they come out and they do very well. And sometimes, like Terry said, you need to go to detox. There's a physical element to this, and they just absolutely have to be under medical care for a little while before they could even attempt something like this, because they would seize or whatever happens. We've seen that. And I've often said to people, listen, we are pretty sure this process of the 12 steps is good for everybody, right? So it is good. And at some point in everybody's recovery, I think it would do some good to run through the steps. And so everybody's recovery at some place couldn't hurt them. But where they put it is not for us to say. People say, well, what if they go to rehab? Can they not come to a retreat? No, of course they could come. Before they could come to retreat and then go to rehab. I mean, whatever the steps are, we don't have a monopoly on it, and neither did they. But we want to be a tool in the toolbox so that when people have a choice to get recovered, they at least have a shot. That, because what we hear so much these days is nobody even knows about the ability to do the steps the way we do them. And so they don't have that. It'd be like you going and saying there is no detox to go to. You needed a detox, but there isn't any if you didn't know it. It's the same with this. Some, I think, also go to these rehabs, and what they need, like you said, Dee, you needed this. And had you known this, it might have done better. I hit this first, but I think if I had gone to rehab, I would have still needed this after. And then been like, I just needed, we have some other members of our fellowship in our senior leadership who have said they went multiple times to rehabs that didn't work. And it was this that worked for them.
So one of the things, Tom, here, I don't know if it's the same in the USA, is that it's not, most people don't go to, well, no, I wouldn't know, that's the wrong thing. There's much money for people to go to rehabs. So people don't think it works, so they don't tend to go. There's a lot of day services. People go in, there's group work, they come in, they've got a caseworker, according to their needs. So I don't know, did you have that? Do you have that in America as well?
Well, there's outpatient programs in the rehab centers and around the hospitals. There are, where they can go and then go home and come back the next day. Absolutely.
Yeah, this tends to be less about hospital. They're like third sector or charitable groups, or they're like, you do get hospitals doing it. So, but they have like drug and alcohol service. It's really separate, and it's very much day. I think yours is more, seems like yours might be more in the USA around rehab. I have found that a lot of people find it quite hard to get the funding to go to rehab, because the problem is a lot of people come out and they relapse, So it's more the day service. A lot of people going to weekly appointments, less rather than hospital. It's that even though it can be in a hospital, it's like an actual setting with the same workers as if you would have in a charitable organization. And third sector, we call it. It's like the run by private companies, but in a charitable way. So we've got the US has the same concept, that it's completely separate from hospital. It's probably because you've not been there, Tom. That's why you didn't sort of know so much about it. It's just because we've been right in the middle of it. the other thing I was going to say, talking about separation from alcohol, Dr. Bob, all the way, well, it's in the big book. And if you read Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers, he absolutely insisted that people should go and be separated from alcohol. That's why they all ended up in hospital, because they would put people in hospital. So Silkworth would separate them from alcohol. Dr. Bob would separate them from alcohol. And it was recommended. It was actually not in the steps, but Dr. Bob always recommended it. But the problem is now, because it doesn't work, people think it doesn't work, that people get separated from alcohol and then they go and relapse. It's like, you know, people keep going in and out, separation, but no support afterwards, you know. So it's definitely a big book to go and, you know, have, I mean, Bill didn't he? In Bill's story, it talks about him, you know, he had to go into hospital, be separated from alcohol before he could hear what Ebby was saying, which was, you know, here we are, you need to do these 12 steps, which was the 6 tenets at the time. But Bill had to be separated, like physically, in a hospital before he could do it. So some people really do need that.
I have a question for Terry. I don't know what your role is in that organization, but in your role there, are you able to offer Came to Believe as an option? Or do you just use your experience of Came to Believe and put it into what they're already teaching?
So Came to Believe would be classed as what we call fellowship, which is they class it as mutual aid groups now. So we can signpost anyone to mutual aid groups. So Came to Believe is a mutual aid group. So so we can say there's a Zoom meeting on a Tuesday or Wednesday. Just, you know, so we offer the whole range of, you know, so part of some of the work we do is this thing about recovery capital and about what can the individual build on themselves, you know, had, you know, better mental health, physical, emotional, look at the finances, housing, they sort all that out as well. And then it's like, what supportive networks have you got? So it can be family, peers, things like that. And then mutual aid groups. So, so we, you know, we're not affiliated or cooperate as such, but we cooperate, we don't affiliate. So, so someone, again, it's up to the individual. It's about that person, you know, taking responsibility for their recovery. And what I find is people that, you know, engage with a service and also attend mutual aid groups, they all basically achieve abstinence if that's their goal. Because like Dee said, not all the clients that come through will, it's not an abstinence-based service as such, you know. Right. Some people may want harm reduction, some people may want to do something. So there's a whole range of services, but people that want abstinence, that work on a pathway, whether it's alcohol, non-opiate, opiate, whatever the substances they use, they'd have a period of 10 to 12 weeks working with a worker, and during that period we would signpost someone to mutual aid. But personally, I've worked with people that have an up to a 10-week non-opiate pathway, and they might start going to fellowships in week 1, week 2, and by week 5, 6 they're 28 days abstinent, you know what I mean? And then we can signpost them to the next service, which is relapse prevention, which again fits in with what we talk about in 10, 11 and 12. So, you know, it's all great, it all fits in. If the person's motivated to do it, it's great. You know, I've got people that come 1 or 2 weeks, and like, you know, some people on 10 weeks, sadly, but it's about the individual as well, where they're at. And again, we meet them where they're at, same as what Came to Believe does. But everything that we do and we work with psychosocial will fit in with 4 through 9, and then 10, 11 and 12, what we class as relapse prevention, or we call it living in the go. You know, get out and live your new life. You need, I said today, you know, I know Tom uses this, you know, you've got 6 or 8 hours in a day when a person's been using substances, and you've got now 6 or 8 hours or in a day to go and live your life. You know, if the only thing you can't do is take a drink or a drug, you can do anything. Mm-hmm. It's like amazing. You know, I don't think of it like that, because you know, people don't.
Now I have all this time. What am I going to do?
Yeah. And I love to, you know, I mean, and like we're saying, we just want to be a piece of that puzzle, because you're right. There's some people, Gwen, who their goal isn't to stop. It's to moderate. Their goal isn't to stop using. For Came to Believe, if you come to us, we don't know how to do that. That's not something I'd refer you to someone else. If you said, I don't really want to stop. I need to figure out how to moderate or whatever. Well, that's not us. It's not legitimate. It's just not something we do. Yeah. You know, if you're looking to stop whatever that is that's got you in brokenness, then that's our wheelhouse. But before we run out of time, I want to talk a little bit like practical things in each of our lives. Let's give the audience some hope and give them some examples of how health and purpose and home and community, how we've had advances in that and things that have changed in our lives. Because I know for me anyway, you come out of the fog of addiction and you can see the wreckage. And sometimes the hill can seem too big to climb. Like, how am I going to ever do anything? And some people don't last long and they go right back in. But let's talk a few minutes about what things did we do, or are we doing, just short, that are absolutely direct results of us being recovered. I can start health-wise. I can run. I go to the gym. I get perfect blood tests now. I sleep very well. I'm hardly ever sick. And these are all parts of being healthy and being fit. I can do a lot of push-ups and pull-ups because that's what I like to be able to do in health and fitness. So those are things, though, that I didn't have when I was drinking and drugging. I didn't feel very physically fit or healthy. I had no purpose because I didn't have a plan. I had no educational background, which I felt I needed. So I went back to school and took one step at a time, one class at a time, but it gave me a purpose. And quickly, when you have to go to class the next day, you have a purpose to wake up every day. I got to write that paper. And that helped me. Like I say, my home life just increased because I became a good, responsible person in partnership, relationship, and a community member. I could buy my own food. You cut your lawn, you kept your house, you paid your bills. My home life got very well. And then in community, I began to go out and get in relationship with other people and just spread. So those are just a couple of things that worked for me. What about you, Alicea?
I would say, that my purpose, I'm still figuring that out because I'm only 4 years sober from eating disorders, 29 with alcohol, but I was a dry drunk and had other addictions. So I'm still figuring that out. The biggest thing probably that I didn't know how it was going to happen, I didn't really believe was going to happen, was relationships with my mom and my kids they're still evolving because they were really bad. I have 3 boys and one of them still hasn't talked to me in 8 years. I'm still waiting for that one. But I fly the boys, one's in Southern California and one's in Arizona. My mom's in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I'm in California. So we came up with this tradition of 4 times a year, we'll all fly and stay with my mom in her house and have the weekend together. And I would never have envisioned that happening and having fun. And my boys, who are 33 and 22, wanting to come and spend a weekend with their mom and their grandma, and they love it. And so that's a huge deal. And I'm still working on those relationships. But yeah, and health, coming from an exercise addiction, I needed to back it down a little bit. So I'm still in the process of doing that. Purpose, I'm finding a lot of purpose and came to believe and volunteering and speaking and learning how to speak. And then community, like doing this and getting out into meetings, getting involved in my church. And that's also a continuous thing because I like to be at home and I like to isolate and I like to be alone. So I'm trying to venture out, but that's my stuff. Basically, relationships is a big change for me.
Do you think, Terry, now with the work, in the organisation that you're working for, or that style of service today, that something like relationships there is a help for that? Is there good services for that, that sort of relationship building
between partners of
outside 12-step? Like if somebody's not doing the 12-step and they go to the drug or alcohol service, would they get good support for relationship building within there? Is what sort of
100%. Yeah. So there's peer mentor groups, there's peer led groups, there's service users. So a lot of what you see in fellowship are modeled now in drug services, very much so. So it's,
things have really changed. Right. It all works.
Yeah.
Even the drug services see a lot of the things that were done back in the steps. They work.
Yeah.
So they use a lot of it. Yeah, here that I know they do. What about you, Terry? You got a couple of real significant things that were
There's lots of
positive that you didn't think?
yeah, but 100%. So there's lots of paradoxes, isn't there? So some, being in that active addiction for like 25, 30 years, I mean, caused a lot of damage to, myself as well as everyone else around me, so family, mum, dad, mental health as well. I, you know, you know, many different diagnoses, mental health, when I was dual diagnosed and that. So, yeah, so, not taking mind altered substances, my mind's not altered, that repairs, that heals, like you said. So it's really great. That's another physical improves, a lot of side effects of medication, a lot of negative effects. I mean, a lot of psychotic drugs have a lot of side effects on the body physically. So, so now that's not there physically, exercising, things like you said, mind a lot clearer, emotional sobriety, 100% through the 12 steps. Community. I was in the active addiction. Everyone knew me in my community. Do you know what I mean? Probably for the wrong reasons, but they all know me now as someone to go to. That's the guy that used to be probably a bit of a lunatic. Now he's, he seems like he's quite a nice person, quite stable. Do you know what I mean? And also family. Caused a lot of damage family wise. So that's the person that sort of they have an expression, the black sheep, is probably now the person that people come to and speak to. Sense of purpose. Yeah. I believe God's qualified the unqualified in my book. 100%. I've been paid more than I'll be paid overdue every day. You know what I mean? So, yeah, and just that 24 hours a day, I could do anything in that 24 hours a day. I can't fit enough hours in a day to do stuff, whereas before I'd be bored. And, so yeah, it's fantastic. What I've gained through Came to Believe and the recovery process. So, yeah, I'm a happy customer.
And Dee, what about you?
In what way are you talking about those 4 headings that you use? So remind me what they are, because I don't tend to think that way.
Health, home,
purpose
and community. Oh, there they are.
So we've got health, home, purpose, community. Well, my whole sort of destiny changed but it was on the spiritual level. Purpose, I must say, I probably would not have got without the 12 steps, because the purpose was revealed through the relationship with the power greater than me, God. And I had that relationship with God, or if for anyone who's listening who, doesn't, that isn't a word they know, the spirit, the power greater than you, whatever it is that you would, you would turn to, has shown me my purpose. And also there's a certain amount of being helped and partnership that I found in that process. I mean, I've just found that. So I would say that through the 12 steps, that's been the biggest thing. I don't think that I would have found purpose. Well, I just don't think I would have found purpose without that. And maybe that's the thing, that's one of the lines, with a person who's powerless like me, that there's absolutely no other hope for me without working the 12 steps. But that doesn't mean that that's the same for everybody. I can't say that's the case. I think everyone would benefit. For me, I was just so bad, so no purpose. Health was terrible. I mean, I'm surprised my liver regenerated. Very surprised at that. My nose was covered in rosacea. I was bloated, like swollen legs under my chin, so health. I was obsessed with exercise, actually, really obsessed with it. It was the thing that I would try and do to stop drinking. And in the end, it didn't work. But when I came out the other end, I went into obsessive exercise, and it was really not beneficial. It absolutely overtook my mind. So I tend to be I don't try and get into talking about that a lot, being like, oh, it's a good idea to go and exercise. I'm like, whatever you need to do. For me, I have to be able to not. go into that because there was some stuff which I was powerless over, and it was bad, you know. So on health wise, I eat well, and you know, I've had some health issues, usually just related to getting to be older, but not, you know, I'm able to recover quite well. Home, I owed loads of money, like really lot of money, like about 60 grand worth, which is £60,000 in debt. And I don't have that anymore. And I lost my home and I lost everything. And I've just recently, in the last 2 years, bought completely outright, bought my own home. And anything I've got, a little bit of money I owe, is for some work I did on the house, you know, to upgrade it and paying that off. So that's not, you know, like everything's sort of like covered. What was the last one? So there's 4. What's
community?
Okay, oh, it's brilliant. Sarah's in the background, bringing everything up to look after everybody. So community, that's, you know, the fellowship, or through Came to Believe, but also through, because I go to a lot of AA meetings as well, which are great, good, strong, big book meetings, you know, really, really good meetings, very, very powerful messages. It's just wonderful. So I have a lot of community through that. But I want and am trying, and it's sometimes I slowed it up a bit, almost like community outside, that friends that I've got that are not addicts or alcoholics, and I might have neglected that a bit. So I'm trying, in these recent years, I've really started engaging with people who are, you know, are in the world, you know, so that I can be part of that, and family as well, because family isn't part of that. So, you know, the community is vital, of fellowship, but I also believe that for me, that I need to be in the world too. You know, I think I was put here to be in the world by my creator. So does that cover what you were asking?
Yes, that's like a mic drop. So it was great, guys. It was a great discussion. And I think it's an important discussion to keep going, which is how we can all work together, and that we're really, all the services and everybody working towards ending addiction are looking towards the same thing, is to helping people be free from what it is that has them in destruction and not success and broken. And everybody has a different path. And it's great that there are paths for people to be on. And we, for one, should be talking to everybody, whether they want to talk to us or not. We should talk to them. And you guys in the UK may be a little bit ahead of us here with the connection with the professional side and the fellowship side. At least I run into that. A lot of the professional side now, I hear say they wish they were more connected with the fellowship side, and that it's been a mistake of the professional side to feel like only that the fellowship side was a nice thing to do after, but not a real solution. And I've had some professionals tell me that, and some not. Some are very involved, but onward, guys. And this is part of what I'm doing, and I think you guys are also doing. It sounds you're definitely doing it, Terry and Dee. Everywhere I go, I try to break the silo and say we all should be working together and help each other to improve our health, our purpose, our home, and our community. I want to thank you guys for being on today. I think it's a discussion we should keep having. We're living in the go. Look it up. We all woke up today. We all got dressed. We're living in houses, doing our thing. And this is what you get when you shake off that thing that's been breaking you. I won't be here next week, but Alicea will be here with a cast of characters to take you through Recovery Live. So have a great rest of your week, everybody. And we'll see you. I'll be back in 2 weeks, but Alicea will be back next week right here at 10 a.m. PST, 1 p.m. Eastern, and 6 p.m. in the UK for Recovery Live. Have a great rest of your week, guys.
Bye,
Thanks for
Terry.
joining, everybody.